Imagine you cannot feel your fingers. You stopped feeling them 3 hours ago. The wind is not blowing. It is screaming, a living, furious thing that has decided, personally, that you will not survive this night. The temperature has dropped to -58 degrees Fahrenheit. You are alone. Your sled dogs are dead. Your compass is buried under 4 feet of snow, somewhere behind you. And the darkness, the absolute, suffocating, total darkness, has been unbroken for 11 hours. And somewhere, not far enough away, you heard something moving in the dark about 20 minutes ago, and it has not stopped moving since. This is not a story someone invented to frighten children. This is Alaska. This is what it asked of every single person who ever tried to call it home. There is a place at the edge of the known world where the land itself seems hostile to human life, where the mountains do not merely rise but erupt from the earth in jagged, glaciated walls that scrape the sky, where the ocean does not separate land masses so much as it devours the ships foolish enough to sail across it, where the darkness in winter is not merely the absence of light, but a psychological force that has broken the minds of grown men and sent them wandering into the cold, never to return. Long before the first European ships appeared on the horizon, the Unangan people had already learned what Alaska demanded of those who wished to live inside its borders. They built their baidarkas, those extraordinary skin-covered kayaks, from driftwood and animal hide, sewing them with sinew so precisely that not a drop of water could enter. The North Pacific off the Aleutian Islands is among the most ferocious ocean environments on Earth. Currents collide there with the force of geological argument. Every time a hunter pushed his kayak into those grey, churning waters, everyone on shore understood they might never see him again. And then the Russians arrived, and Alaska became something even more dangerous. In 1741, Vitus Bering became the first European to make documented contact with the Alaskan coast. His expedition did not end in glory. It ended in catastrophe. Scurvy ravaged his crew. His ship, the St. Peter, was wrecked on an uninhabited island in the Commander Islands chain. Bering himself died there in December on that frozen and desolate rock, buried in the sand by men who could barely stand. Russian fur traders descended upon the Aleutian Islands with a ferocity that transformed the landscape of violence. They forced Unangan men to hunt sea otters for them under threat of death. They took women and children hostage. They introduced diseases against which the indigenous population had no immunity. Entire island communities collapsed. Ask yourself, if you had been among those first Russian traders wintering on an Aleutian island in 1762, surrounded by darkness and cold, and a people who had every reason to despise you, by the mid-19th century, Alaska had become American territory, purchased from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million, a transaction so widely mocked at the time that newspapers called it Seward's folly. Those who had wintered there understood that no amount of money fully compensated for what Alaska extracted from human beings in exchange for its resources. Men who had fought in the Civil War, men who had seen Antietam, who had survived Gettysburg, wrote home from Alaskan postings, describing a fear they could not name, a creeping dread produced not by anything visible, but by the sheer, crushing immensity of the land itself, its indifference, its silence, its darkness. Then gold was discovered, and everything became immeasurably worse. The Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 sent tens of thousands of men north into one of the most lethal environments on the continent, many of them entirely unprepared for what they would encounter. The Canadian authorities mandated that every prospector carry 1 ton of supplies, 1 ton carried, in many cases, by hand, up a trail so steep that photographs of it look almost vertical. Some men made that climb 30, 40 times to relay their supplies upward. Men died of exhaustion on the Chilkoot Pass. In April of 1898, a massive snowslide on the pass buried and killed over 60 people in minutes. The survivors described digging through the compacted snow with their bare hands, finding fingers, finding faces, finding stillness where there had just been voices. Those who survived the Chilkoot Pass still faced the Yukon River, and the Yukon River had its own opinions about who deserved to reach Dawson City. Men built makeshift boats from green lumber that warped and took on water almost immediately. The Miles Canyon section of the river was so violent that over 150 boats were wrecked in a single spring season, and dozens of men drowned in water so cold that survival after immersion was measured not in hours but in minutes. The gold rush should be remembered as one of the most extraordinary episodes of mass voluntary suffering in American history, a fever dream of greed that sent ordinary men into extraordinary danger, and still the land was not finished with them. Beyond the gold rush, Alaska harbored dangers that required no human ambition to trigger. The brown bears of Kodiak Island, the largest land predators on Earth, can weigh over 1,500 pounds and cover ground at speeds exceeding 30 miles per hour. Bears that dismantled log cabins searching for food stores. Bears that stalked hunting parties across miles of open tundra with a patience and intelligence that felt deliberately malevolent. To a man alone on a trail in fading light, with no weapon capable of stopping 1,500 pounds of muscle and fury, the distinction was entirely academic. The Bering Sea swallowed ships with such regularity in the late 19th century that maritime insurance for Alaskan routes was nearly impossible to obtain. The revenue cutter bear logged rescue operations every single season, and those were only the ships that were found, only the distress signals that were received. How many ships went down in those waters with all hands and left nothing behind but a name crossed off a manifest somewhere? That number will never be known. Consider what it would mean to truly be there, not visiting, not exploring, but simply trying to survive a single winter in the interior with what those early settlers had. No radio, no weather forecast, no rescue aircraft, just the land and the cold and the dark and whatever resolve you had brought with you from a warmer, gentler world. Darkness in the Alaskan interior during winter is not the polite darkness of a cloudy night. It is total. The sun in some regions does not rise at all for weeks. Men and women described a loosening of the self, a confusion about time and identity, a growing sense that the world outside the small circle of firelight was actively hostile, conscious, watching. They called it going strange, and they watched for it in their companions the way sailors watch a barometer, knowing that when it began to fall, catastrophe was not far behind. Alaska has never apologized for what it is. It simply existed, vast and indifferent, while generation after generation of human beings tested themselves against it. Some discovered they were made of something extraordinary, something patient, resilient, and ferociously alive. Others discovered in their final moments, in the cold and the dark and the silence, that they had fundamentally misjudged the terms of the arrangement. Somewhere in the Alaskan interior, beneath 40 feet of accumulated glacier ice, there are stories that will never be told. Men and women who walked into that immensity and simply did not walk back out, whose names appear only in a missing persons ledger in some archive, listed next to a date and a last known location and nothing else. They are part of Alaska too. They are perhaps the most honest part, the evidence of what the land extracted from those who underestimated it, preserved in the cold. Like everything else Alaska has ever decided to keep, the most dangerous state in America is not dangerous because of what lives there. It is dangerous because of what it is. Those terms have never changed. They were set long before the first human footprint appeared on its shores, and they will remain long after the last one fades. Alaska does not threaten. It simply waits, and it has all the time in the world.